Another question we got asked was, my baby wakes up really early, and I think somebody actually asked it earlier on in the live. How can I get them to sleep longer?
Early wakes are currently my problem. There are a few things. There's lots of things. The first thing I would say is, if you have an early wake and that is the only issue with your sleep, so they fall asleep by themselves, they sleep until they wake in the morning, they nap well or not, depending on the age, but you are just left with this early wake, that is when you know that the early wake is its problem on its own. If you have a little one who is waking frequently in the night and then still starting the morning early, it's more likely that it isn't an early wake problem or an early wake solution to find. It's actually looking more at the crux of they're not able to link those sleep cycles independently. And so by supporting them with that, you will then essentially improve the early wake, because they'll be then able to independently link that last couple of sleep cycles. So obviously I don't know that person's situation, and if they're watching and they want to reach out, then by all means do, and we can chat about it. But deciphering between whether it's an early wake or it's a sleep cycle situation, a settling situation, is the first thing. If you have just an early wake problem, I always kind of follow this with Albie. I always just follow this pattern. So the first thing I would do is I would always try and put him to bed a little bit earlier, which sounds ridiculous because you think if they go to bed earlier, they're going to wake up earlier. But actually, it's likely that the day sleep is having something to do with it. So maybe they've not had enough day sleep. Maybe the timings have been a little bit different. So even just by 15 minutes, half an hour, just bringing it early. Bedtime can be as early as 6 o'clock. So I would always try a couple of nights of bringing it early. You're going to know after a couple of nights whether that's made a positive impact on you early wake. If it hasn't, then I do a couple of nights with it being a bit later. Because sometimes it's just a case of the sleep pressure hasn't built up enough at bedtime. So although they've fallen asleep well, they've had enough sleep. Now, there is also potential that it's a habitual wake, so it's a habit, in which case we can try to break that habit and manually shift the sleep cycles. So that first 3 to 4 hours of the night is deep sleep, if they've gone through the 4-month sleep regression. So when you go to bed, they're likely to still be in deep sleep. So go in to them and stir them. And by a stir, I mean like they could like go like that or roll over. It's like really, really subtle. And if they do wake, it's fine because they're in a deep sleep, so they're not going to fully wake. What you're doing then by stirring them is you are manually putting them into the next sleep cycle earlier than they would naturally be then going into their sleep cycle. So if they're normally at the end of a sleep cycle at 5:30, because you've shifted that earlier on in the night, there's potential then that they're going to be in the middle of a sleep cycle at 5:30 rather than at the end of a sleep cycle. So if it's a habit, you can try that. But also, and this is where we've kind of done a full circle this time round, because we've had a few bouts of early wakes, is looking at the whole sleep that they're getting. So for example, yesterday, Albie got 2 hours sleep in the day. We're really lucky he still naps. And we wake him more or less every single nap because he'd just keep going. So we woke him after 2 hours, and then he went to bed he was asleep by 7:30, but he woke up at 5:30. Well, if I add all of that sleep together, he's had 12 hours, which is what he needs. So although he woke up and started the day at 5:30, he's had enough sleep. 12 hours is what he needs. So actually he's had the top end of what he needs. So today, I'll let you know how it goes. Today we have capped his nap. So we've only let him sleep for an hour and a half. He's gone to bed a little bit earlier. And hopefully then that will mean that he wakes a little bit later. But anything that you do, you have to give it a bit of time. You've got to try something for, 3-4 days on the trot. It's not necessarily going to happen straight away. You have to give it a few days, and then you'll be able to see whether it's working. If it hasn't, then dive into that toolkit and try something else, because early wakes is all about essentially just having a toolkit of things to try. If they're at nursery or childcare, that you will probably get fed. They'll be fed at about 4:30. So I'd always offer a supper before bed, because that's quite early and probably earlier than you would normally feed them at home. And so then there is a potential that if the last time they ate at 4:30, then by 5:30 in the morning, they're going to be hungry. So just simple as offering a little bit of supper can help. Checking that your heating doesn't click on at that time and wake them, or the neighbours don't get up and set an alarm off at that time. It's just little things that you probably haven't even thought to look at, but can make a difference. So yeah, early wakes have that toolkit and try it out, try different things.
Yeah, and I suppose that's where you've got your tips and your tricks, and you've got your routine maybe, but having that, like you said, the toolbox is what you need to just keep trying things out, and it'll click into place at some point.
Exactly. And you just got to keep going. Know that you're not going to be getting up at 5:30 for the rest of your life. There are things you can do.
Perfect. And another one of the questions we got in was about holidays and also changing times. I suppose this is really important with the clocks change coming on Sunday. Yeah. So people were asking how they can, whether they're going abroad or especially this weekend, how can they make sure that the baby or the toddler's sleep doesn't suffer?
Okay, so clock change. This clock change is the one that affects people less, because if they're normally waking at 5:30, just naturally that's going to be 5:30. So you've got 3 options. You can either do absolutely nothing, just see how you get on. And I think most people do opt for that option with this change, because obviously we're springing forward. If you don't want to do that, if you want to be have a little bit more control with the clock change, you can the night before put them to bed 30 minutes later. Or option 3 is like 3 or 4 nights before start. So like from nowish, start doing 15 minutes later, and then you just ever so gently getting their body clock ready for it. But with this one, more than any, don't worry. Try not to worry too much about it. If you think of like if you're going on holiday and there's an hour's time difference, you wouldn't try and prepare them for it. You'd just see what happened. It's essentially exactly the same. So just try not to worry too much about it. We are doing nothing. And most people who I've spoken to are just going to do nothing and see what happens. The one where we go back, obviously you get an early morning then potentially, so people stress a little bit more about that one. But with this one, you've got options, but essentially try not to worry too much about it. With holidays, I always put in the same category as illness or teething. There's nothing you can do about it. And if you are worrying about their sleep before you've even got on the plane or you've got in the car, depending on where you're going, that's already going to put a dampener on your holiday. Try not to worry. If they are poorly or if they're teething, you naturally will support them more. Being on holiday is a different environment. It's completely different. If they want more support, that's completely normal, because they need that. They're seeking that safety blanket from you that you provide them when they're at home. So try to keep your bedtime routine the same. Try to keep your nap gap. Naps, try to keep that the same. Just as much of what you can from home, mirror. Everything else, just enjoy the holiday and know that it's a weekend, a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks if you're lucky. It's not it's not forever. Anything that happens, if they end up being in bed with you for a week, when they get home, the likelihood is that they're not even going to associate that, and they're going to be back in their room and think, well, I'm back home, this is where I sleep. Don't worry about it. We are going on holiday in a week and a bit. And that'll be the first time abroad, obviously, for a while, because of the dreaded C word. And last time we went away, it was awful. But again, we hadn't done anything to change Albie's sleep at that point. We've since been away in England, and an example, at home, I will close the door and leave. When we were away, I did everything else the same. He went down fine, but he wanted me to just stay in the room with him until he fell asleep. Well, for the sake of 15 minutes on the evening of my holiday, I was more than happy to do that. He then knew that the environment was safe. I was there, and it didn't make his night sleep any different. He just needed a little bit of a helping hand in actually falling asleep, because it was a different environment and he wasn't sure about it. Just follow their lead with it, and if they need more, give them more. It's okay. When you get home, things will return. And if they don't, then there's always help out there to help.
Perfect. Yeah, I think now holidays are now a must-have.
Yeah. So don't sleep, or the worry of sleep stop you from going away. Gosh, we all need a break. We need that time. We need to make those memories. Enjoy it. Don't let it hold you back.
Yeah, absolutely. So then we've had a few more, I suppose, more specific questions from people, and I wanted to just answer them because they'd actually direct messaged away from question boxes and asked for, so I feel like these are quite important ones.
Yeah.
So I will tag them in this as well, so they can go back and see it if they're not in the live now. So at Rachel Carley said, my 13-month-old has always slept through the night. Mm-hmm. Why has she suddenly started waking? And I suppose we've kind of covered this throughout.
Yeah, so I'd look first at day sleep. So 13 months, they're probably going to still be on 2 naps, and probably still need 2 naps. It's normally around about 18 months that they'll start to drop the nap or think about dropping the nap. Sometimes it happens earlier, sometimes it happens later, but averagely it's about 18 months. So I would say, looking at that, you might be having, just as an average kind of suggestion, maybe you're having a nice big nap in the morning and then a shorter nap in the afternoon, or they're starting to fight that shorter nap, and so it's not as long. So you can think about the timings of your naps. You can think about capping potentially that first nap, so then your second nap becomes earlier, and then they can sleep for longer, and so they're ready then for bed. You might need to put bed back a little bit. I'd also look at potentially how much sleep are they getting during the day. So for 13 months, it's somewhere between 2.5, 3.5 hours that we'd be hoping for them to get. If they're not getting that, I'd bring your bedtime forward to compensate for that. Teeth play a big part in sleep. Are they showing signs in the day of teething? If the answer to that is yes, then unfortunately there is no magic wand, no trick to deal with that. You have to support them however they need you to. Sometimes there are teeth that come and we're like, oh, where did that pop from? And then others, you know that a tooth is coming. So always look to teeth, always check that there isn't anything wrong health-wise, that they're okay. Check the naps. And also, often what can happen, potentially they're not poorly now, or potentially they're not teething now, but they've just been poorly, or they've just had a teething spell, and so you've changed how you've responded. Naturally, as they get older, they're going to start having preference and making a preference to, oh, well, I did that and they responded this way. Now I'm not doing that, they're responding this way. So if I go back to doing that, they might respond that way again. So that's really normal, to suddenly have had something happen before and them seek it again. So again, it's about just to that. Whether that's leaving, returning, whether that's staying with them and supporting them in the room. There's lots of different ways to do it, but it's hard to say, to just answer that, why is that happening? Because
Yeah.
there could be so many reasons why that's happening. And that's why the support that I offer, the first thing you do is you fill out a questionnaire, and it's about 8 pages long, and it gives me so much detail because there can be so many answers to that question. But hopefully it's given her a few things to think about and potentially might go, oh yes, that. Or I'll try that.
Yeah, so hopefully, Rachel, there's something in that. I think maybe Rachel wanted a one-word answer for that.
If you want to message me, Rachel, by all means, send me a message and we can try and dive a little bit deeper into it. But essentially, there is only so much you can do on a DM as well. Try and help people as much as possible on DMs, but sometimes it's just too broad. You have to be able to look specifically at the whole sleep picture.
Yeah, that toolbox is definitely needed here. Yeah. Another one, which is from @ThisCharmingGracie, was about sleepwear. So with the summery days we've just had, I think it's got everyone thinking that it's going to be here forever. So is there anything you'd advise for baby to sleep in when it's the warmer nights, or abroad, I suppose, now as well?
Yeah, so I would say make sure you are looking using the right tog if you're using a sleep suit, because just like us with duvets, if it's too heavy, it's going to cause them to be hot. But essentially, if you were abroad, for example, I would probably just have them in a vest. They might then also want a sleep suit or a thin blanket duvet. But our body temperature rises in the night anyway, so not too much. I would also say, if you are testing how hot they are, don't feel the hands or the feet. They are naturally colder. Feel the tummy or the back. That's going to give you a good inclination as to how hot they're going to be. But abroad or in now, even though the days are warmer at the minute, hopefully it stays, the nights are still cool. So I wouldn't really be doing anything different to what you've been doing. Just keep doing exactly the same. As the nights get warmer, just follow their lead. You know them. You would naturally, if you've got long sleeves on in the day, likelihood is you need something long sleeve on at night time. You might just take a layer off in terms of no vest. Or if they are just in shorts and a t-shirt, and they might just want to be in a short sleeve vest or shorts and a t-shirt, pajamas, they might kick the duvet off. If they've kicked the duvet off, you can pop it back on, but I would just give them a little feel and check how do they feel if they kicked it off because they're too hot. But it's, again, it's different for everybody, but that's kind of a general for that one.
Yeah, and I think with the optimism of hot weather, it's got...
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm now back in the big jumper for the evening because abroad.
Yeah, it's a complete... Yeah, you walk outside and it's like people are in shorts.
Yeah.
It's not that warm.
Not that warm.
And another question we had was from @our.reality_life.
Nice. Look at that.
I just saying that a few times. So she's a bit worried because, well, not worried, that might be a bit of an exaggeration, but she asked that her daughter always wants a bottle at 4 a.m. but has 3 meals a day plus snacks. Mm-hmm. Do you have advice?
So it definitely sounds like it is a habit, although you could potentially try supper, because if she's genuinely hungry, then that would be around about the time, depending on what time she had tea. So look to potentially do a supper. Or if you feel like, no, I know she's just doing it for habit and I don't want to continue doing it, because that's a big thing. If you're happy feeding her at 4 a.m, because she then goes back off to sleep for a couple of hours, carry on. It's fine. It's not doing her any harm. If you want to stop the feed, there are a couple of ways of doing it. So you can either go cold turkey and just stop and support her in a different way. So don't just stop and leave her to sort herself out. She's still going to need, she obviously wanted that comfort for a reason. So you need to replace the comfort of a bottle with the comfort of a different way. And that could be going in and calming her in the cot. That could be picking her up and giving her a cuddle and helping her fall back to sleep with you and then transferring her. Lots of different ways of doing that. But you could just go cold turkey with the bottle and see how she gets on. Or you can gradually reduce the number of ounces that you're giving. So if you're giving 6 ounces, for example, you'd lower it to 5 ounces for a couple of nights, and 4 ounces, 3 ounces, 2 ounces, until when you get to that 2 ounce point, you'd then just stop after that. So it's much more gradual. But the likelihood is that as you're changing something, whether you do it gradually or you do it cold turkey, she's still going to seek comfort from you. So it's about deciding what you want that comfort to look like. But the biggest question to start with is, do you want to change it, or are you happy? If you're happy, keep going. It's fine.
Perfect. Thank you, Hannah. So I'm just going to scroll through the questions that we had earlier to check, see if there's anything we haven't covered. Just taking me a while, sorry, but I feel like I've learned so much in this.
It's complicated sleep, but it doesn't need to be. It just feels like it can be. And I think social media and the internet has so much to play in that, because everything is so conflicting. It's such an opinion fueled topic. And actually know the facts.
Yeah, and everything's perfect to some people, whereas they don't show things that are struggles. And that's why at Ickle Bubba we're trying to have those conversations and sort those taboos out for people, so they don't feel like not doing as well. There's one here. So at Fiona Curry said, should I get my almost 2-year-old to go to sleep in her cot herself? Right now we get her to sleep in our bed and then transfer her. She sleeps all night though.
Unless you want her to fall asleep in a cot and not in your bed, no. I mean, if she sleeps all night, it's fine. If she was waking, I'd be saying she's probably seeking the last thing she saw, which was being in your bed. So she's like, oh, why am I in a different space? But if she's sleeping through the night and you are happy for her to fall asleep in her bed, in your bed, and for you to transfer her when she's asleep, and that works, no, keep it going. That's fine.
Yeah. And I suppose if you want to get rid of them falling asleep in your bed, speak to Hannah. And then somebody later on's commented saying that they've had to move their little boy back into their room because he's sleeping in his own cot but keeps waking throughout the night and won't settle because he knows we are in bed.
Yeah.
So the complete opposite.
Yeah, and that can be tricky. And sometimes you have to revert back to what can feel like an extreme, bringing them back into your room but in their own bed, get them confident in sleeping in their own bed, and then transfer them back to their room. And often then you can then support that way with a method. Or sometimes you have to put in a middle stepping stone, and it might be a case of, right, so you were in the same room as them in your room, now you're going to be in the same room as them in their room, and that might be a blow up bed on the floor for a little bit, so that you get them used to back being in their room. When they're then happy to be in their room, then you can remove yourself. And how you do that, whether that's quickly in terms of going and returning, or gradually changing where you are and how you support them. But sometimes you have to put in that middle stepping stone. If you've had to bring them back in with you, you then have to keep everything the same except in a different environment, if that makes sense.
And like you say, it's those habits, those toolboxes, everything, going back, trying different things, and hopefully there'll be a solution for people out there. And that was the question. I've just gone through and that was all the questions. So if there is anybody with a question, please leave it in the grid post that we'll be posting after this. And thank you, Hannah, so much, because I know I've learnt loads. I might be more.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And I suppose my biggest thing to say to parents is, because it's said to me all the time, I think I've been told it by 3 different people just today. Someone said something along the lines of, I know I shouldn't be, or I've made a bad habit, or I know it's wrong to. There is no wrong way to look after and sleep with your baby. If it works for you, it works for you. Don't let what you read or what you're told or what you see or what you think you should be doing cloud how you are parenting. You are you, and your baby is your baby, and you know them best. So there's no bad habits, there's no wrong way, there's no, oh, I've done this wrong. You've just done what you know how to do, and don't let anyone else make you think anything different.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And like you said at the start, at the click of the fingers, they'll soon be turning 3, and it will all go before you know it. And it might be difficult, but
yeah,
there's help there, and also eventually they will grow up. Which
and
will be
equally, if you sat here watching this and thinking, God, I want so desperately to get sleep, I want to ask for help, but for fear of what other people will think of you doing that, do what's right for you. Sleep deprivation is used as a form of torture for a reason. If you are sleep deprived, want to make a difference, and the opinions of someone else is what is holding you back, don't let it. There are so many, even if it's not me, there are so many people out there. There is someone who is right for you, and find the person that's right for you. Don't feel pressured by the person who you're asking for help to go with them either. Do what's right for you.
Definitely. I think that's the most amazing advice. And also on that advice, go and follow Hannah. She's obviously linked in this video, but she's got amazing tips, tricks, everything you need. There's even a reel about the clocks changing if you're worried about that you posted a couple of days ago. So yeah, thank you so much everyone for joining us. Thank you, Hannah, for joining us. Really enjoyed it.
Oh my